I call Chris Loder to move the motion.
Mr Davis, thank you. It's a pleasure to speak under your chairmanship today. We know that the future of railway ticket offices is an important one. The level of attendance here today and the fact that the Transport Select Committee is also in parallel session receiving evidence about this matter, I think confirms it. It does sort of feel as though the old days have come back when I was a member of the union, having a union meeting to see so many friends and colleagues from across the House here, and I would like to warmly welcome all of you to take part in this debate. Mr Chairman, I am here today on a mission. That mission is to ensure that the staffed hours at West Dorset railway stations are protected and definitely not slashed by more than 50%, as is currently proposed by the South Western Railway in its station change consultation. Yes, I'll give way.
Thank him for giving way. He's making a fantastic speech. Does he share my worries? Because Scunthorpe is another station that's seen a huge reduction in hours under these proposals. I know the Minister will address this, but does he share my worries that clearly they can't get out from behind that ticket office and do any work around the station if their hours are cut? They simply won't be there.
Can I thank my honourable friend very much for her intervention? I wholly agree with her that there is a lack of understanding about this issue, and I shall look to expose these things later in my speech, and I thank my honourable friend very much. Mr Chairman, can I begin by referring the House to the Members' Register? Not because I've been bankrolled by a trade union and feel obliged to speak, and I know that some on the opposition side here today are in that position, and that union cash has gone into the back pocket of some members present to the value of tens of thousands of pounds here today. That is not why I'm speaking, Mr Chairman. I'm speaking because before election, I worked for the railway for 20 years, and that career started as a station assistant, the very role that is affected by these proposals, and in my case, the proposals from South Western Railway. In just a moment. The trade unions, and particularly the RMT, have for many years blocked meaningful reform of station staff conditions of service, even though those reforms may have been beneficial to staff. It has meant that when ticket offices are quiet and no customer is there, that rather than checking the car park or cleaning the station or helping those in need on a platform, staff have, in many cases, not done that, often because they were instructed by their union not to undertake any other responsibilities, or indeed not to fully undertake the responsibilities they have. That is nothing new, but I am very proud to say that it's not an issue at the stations in West Dorset. No one can say that I don't believe staff are important. They are, and much more so than some train operators and others have given them credit. For the record, I would like to thank those members of staff, many of whom are former colleagues of mine, who have done and continue today to diligently and carefully look after the many thousands of passengers who pass through their stations. To Judith and Winifred at Dorchester South, Colin and Bob, who both retired from Sherborne a few years ago, and of course Anne, who has worked at Sherborne Station since I was a little boy. To all of you, I would like to tell you today that as your MP, I shall stand up not just to protect your employment, but the cherished service that you give that is so welcomed by the hundreds and hundreds of local people whom you help every single day. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
I thank him for giving way and for securing this important debate. Can I assure him I'm not here on behalf of any trade union, but actually on behalf of my residents, particularly those who have a disability, those who need special tickets like extensions to freedom passes, and women travelling late at night on their own. These measures will see very highly used stations like Whitton and Teddington, my constituency, reduced to only 20 hours of staffing a week. Does he agree with me that without an equality impact assessment and without ticketing modernisation, we should not be pressing ahead with these changes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And can I thank the Honourable Lady for her intervention? I would just say to her that I'm going to come on to my speech in a moment. I'm going to highlight some of these issues where there is clearly a veil behind which is hidden an enormous reduction in staffing hours per se at stations, and that is a key issue, and I shall come to address that in a moment. I'll briefly give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
Honourable Gentleman for doing that, but and just to follow on from the Honourable Lady's comment, to completely alter the decent ticket services for constituents, I think, is wrong, primarily because of what the Honourable Lady said, but also because in many of the rural areas that across the United Kingdom, the impact will even be greater for elderly constituents and for those who perhaps are not just au fait with the online system. Does the Honourable Gentleman feel that before government and the Minister progresses with this, as Honourable Lady said, that there needs to be a review and understanding and all the input of everybody into this process? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll come on to address those points later in my speech if the Honourable Gentleman will allow me. As a concept, Mr. Chairman, moving staff from being solely behind the ticket office window to be more visibly present on the station, to be directly helping passengers, whether that's purchasing tickets or whether that is helping people on and off trains, is, in my opinion, a good thing. And it is, in principle, an initiative I support. But behind this veil is the reality for Sherborne Station that the overall staffed hours will be 40% less than what it is today. For Crookherne Station in South Dorset, serving rural west of my constituency, it will have its hours slashed by 50%. And the reality for Dorchester, the county town of Dorset, is that the South Station is currently proposed by South Western Railway to have its staffing presence slashed by 55%. Yes, I should be delighted.
I thank the member for giving way. There were also staff cuts proposed at Barnes, Earlsfield, Putney and Wandsworth Town, served by my constituents. Would the member agree with my constituents that we don't understand why the government seem to be pushing for this to happen, why there have been potential changes to the ticketing settlement agreement back earlier this year which have forced these changes on the rail companies? And does he agree that there are concerns by many people that this violates the Equality Act of 2010?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think some of the questions that the Honourable Lady asked are probably for the Minister to address a little later in his speech. But I would agree with her that there are a number of aspects that have not been taken into account in the current consultation proposals, which is why I am making this speech and have called for this debate today. This disingenuous veil of moving staff from behind the ticket office window to be out on the station with no change in staff hours is patently untrue in West Dorset. This is not reform. This is inequality, not just against those with mobility issues, but for the elderly and for those who are often without access to technology, driving still further issues of rural isolation. And what's more, yes, I will be happy to give way to my time.
He's making a powerful speech and I congratulate him on securing this debate. But there is a more fundamental still issue here. We are stripping life of human interactions, of connections between people. And in doing so, in the private and public sector, by the way, everything from shops to banks are now railway stations. And in doing so, we're unpicking the threads that bind us together and make up the tapestry of civilised life. And so this is a time to think again and take a stand.
Can I thank my right honourable friend for his contribution? I think he's in entire agreement with a lot of the things I've just said, and I should go on to further elaborate in just a moment. And what's more, Mr. Chairman, it goes to compound years of really poor service to the people of Dorset. South Western Railway have slashed the train service previously, totally cutting us off from direct trains to London for prolonged periods, removing all on-board catering for train journeys of almost 3.5 hours, and dumping passengers at all times of day or night with no way to travel forward just to save a few minutes in delay. These are just some examples of what my constituents face day to day. Now, I recognise that there are some who are advocate proponents of this scheme. And for those, that is clearly for those proponents of this scheme who say that it is vital to progress de-staffing and ticket office closures because only 12% of all tickets are sold at ticket offices. Yes, I shall be happy to briefly give way.
Those wishing to close argue as few as 12% of tickets are being bought through the ticket office. But I know my honourable friend has travelled through Thornby's brilliant little trade station, where almost 25% of tickets are still bought through the ticket office. Does he agree with me that those 25% of people are often the most vulnerable people in society, and that Thornby's ticket office must stay open?
Anyone would think my honourable friend has had prior sight of my speech to make such a point. Yes, I agree with him, and I'm just about to articulate why. In my case in West Dorset, Mr Chairman, South Western Railway have refused to tell me what the percentage of tickets sold at ticket offices on both the Weymouth and Exeter lines actually is. And I wonder why that may be. Because operators who have wanted to do the right thing have been open and have shared that information because it is in the public interest. But regardless of the background, we have some realities today. And the real question that my constituents are asking is, does a national figure of 12% of all tickets being purchased from ticket offices warrant them all being closed down?
Will my honourable friend give way?
I should be delighted.
So just on that point, I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I'm staunchly against the proposals of not only staffing hours being reduced, but the ticket offices in Keighley and Ilkley proposed to being closed. And when we have a higher than national average of ticket sales being sold through Keighley and Ilkley, 1 in 6 as opposed to the lower national trend, does my honourable friend agree with me that the proposals to close Keighley and Ilkley ticket offices is absolutely the wrong one?
I would agree that my honourable friend shares many of the same difficulties and challenges that I do in West Dorset, and will be pleased to further articulate why I agree with him further. Mr Chairman, I was going on to say that because the 12% nationally of tickets purchased from ticket offices, it does not necessarily warrant them all to be closed down, when, particularly for many rural stations, the higher aged communities, that percentage is much higher than average, and no more so than in the southwest. The demographic of constituents in my West Dorset constituency is such that 30% of the population are over 65, and that suggests that more people use ticket offices than average. It totally busts this myth that only 12% of tickets are sold at all stations, when, for example, at Barnstaple Station, in the constituency of my honourable friend, the member for North Devon, 45% of all tickets are sold at the ticket office. In Dorchester, even if the company gave me the stats, they would not offer an accurate picture anyway, because such is the level of management incompetence that the ticket office door was closed for in excess of 3 months last year, waiting for repair. And that will undoubtedly have skewed these statistics, and quite frankly is questionable in itself. And the only reason it got sorted in that situation was because I complained about it. Briefly, I'll give way to Honourable Friend.
I have an email from a whistleblower who works for Abellio Greater Anglia. The key thing it says is this: the ticket offices are used much more than people realise. Although the figures say only 12% of tickets are issued by ticket offices, this is an average. Stations like Billericay, Wickford and Rayleigh are selling over 500 per shift at weekends. So people who work for the railway and who know the truth would agree with everything that my honourable friend has just said.
Can I thank my right honourable friend for his contribution and support? Mr Chairman, there is a significant access for all bid in for Dorchester South. It is for a new footbridge to make the station accessible. What company of any moral standing would propose a reduction in staffing hours of 55% when half of the station is inaccessible and when the company refuses to routinely change the platform to help those in the greatest of need. Now, we would typically assume that if you buy your tickets online through retailers like the Trainline and others, that they are working in your best interests as a fare-paying passenger, and that they automatically search for the cheapest fare possible, possibly through something called a split ticket. But I can tell the House today that that is not the case, and I'd like to offer an example or two. The cheapest way for rail passengers to get from London to Plymouth, the cheapest way, is to travel via London Waterloo and change at Exeter St David's. And you should buy a ticket from Waterloo to Axminster and another ticket from Axminster to Plymouth, which in total will cost you £93.90 return. And if you had a rail card, you would pay just £64.50 return. But right now, if any of you have smartphones, feel free to have a look for yourself. If you entered on your smartphone London to Plymouth, you will be given the option to take the 10:04 from Paddington to Plymouth, which when I checked before this debate, you will be offered a ticket on the train line for a staggering £158.70, almost £100 more than the cheapest alternative, which is actually on the 10:20 from Waterloo to Exeter and then change. But why is that? It is because anti-competitive, online, digital algorithms have been set to block certain ticket combinations. In this example, on the Waterloo to Exeter line. And to be fair, it's not just on the Trainline app. Anyone who wants to, have a look on southwesternrailway.com and try and book the same fare on that website. Put in those details. But why not even try specifically to put London Waterloo to Plymouth? And you will find it won't give you the cheapest combination either. It will send you to Paddington and make you pay more. But we didn't ought to think that this issue is reserved to the South West either. This time last year, I called out Avanti West Coast and the train line for similar behaviours on the route between Manchester and London, where the supposed walk-up fares were quota controlled if you bought them online, and if the ticket quota had sold out, you would be redirected to a more expensive online fare, or the cookies on your smartphone would tell you the system that you wanted that ticket, it would tell the system that you wanted that ticket, and it would automatically charge you more. I should give way to my honourable friend.
Describing my journey home this evening. He's absolutely describing the reason why we need people in our ticket offices to be able to go and ask for advice, for guidance, for how to get about and how to navigate that system that is so badly orchestrated for those who want to buy them online. Do you think he can go further in telling us how we might provide a solution for that system?
Well, I think my honourable friend is about to take the words out of my mouth when I conclude my speech in just a moment. But I just want to say, whereas if you went to the ticket office, the regulations require that the cheapest ticket is to be sold, and you could indeed buy that cheapest ticket there at the advice of someone in the ticket office. And what's really disgraceful about all of this is this issue that I highlighted on the West Coast Main Line this time last year was during the period of the lying in of state of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth, when so many people wanted to travel to London. It is pure commercial disdain. I mean, it just makes me sick. Mr. Chairman, this, frankly, is a scandal. And after this debate, I will be writing to the Competitions and Mergers Authority to ask them to investigate this. And I hope the Minister will do this as well. And if any other members, regardless of which side of the House, would like to co-sign my letter, I would be delighted to hear from them after this debate. But I would like to remind the House that I am here today actually to make the case for our station staffing hours to be maintained. Not just because we need these experienced and knowledgeable members of staff, but to make sure that in this cost of living crisis, passengers can get the cheapest fare rather than relying on manipulative apps and online digital prices that overcharge them. The one person that can be trusted to provide the cheapest fare is the ticket office clerk. Proposals for reform should not just improve efficiency, they should enable a growing railway for the future and access to the railway for all. The Secretary of State kindly gave me the assurance last week when he came to my office here in Westminster that the sort of duplicity that is being proposed could be vetoed. And today, those of us here are making that point on the record, and I hope the Minister will be able to concur. Mr. Chairman, I am not adverse to reform. In actual fact, it is important to recognise that I think it is a good thing. But today, as the constituency MP for West Dorset, I'm requesting that the Minister will stop these ridiculous proposals from South Western Railway and will ensure that we do not see a reduction in staffed hours at either Sherborne or Dorchester South, as I expect other members here present will do the same. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered railway ticket officers. If